Welcome to The Girlfriend God, a podcast in search of and in service to the divine feminine, bringing you an equal mix of academic research and emotional spiritual experience. Please rate and review on your podcast streaming platform. We'll leave a comment on YouTube. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. Let's get in the flow. Welcome to the Girlfriend God. Today, I'm happy to welcome Flora Ware. Flora is a paradigm shifter, a goddess guide, and she's the founder of Earth Song Temple. She serves a global community of women as a ceremonial priestess, as a sacred musician, and a cyclic living teacher. Flora specializes in archetypal spirituality and embodiment, helping women hear their soul's voice, awaken the goddess within, and align their life and work with their unique feminine power. Flora is deeply connected to her Celtic ancestral roots, having been on the path as a practicing witch since her first full moon woman circle in 1993. She lives in Vernon, BC, Canada, with her wife and young wizard in training, and you can visit Flora at floraware.ca. Flora, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It's a pleasure to be here.
So when I set up this podcast with you, we decided to name the episode. I haven't come up with because I try and come up with catchy titles, but it has something to do with archetypes because I know that's your specialty, and how archetype and what archetypes have to do with our chakra system and how those two things are related. And for me, this kind of dovetails nicely with the episode that I just recorded with Rima Benario, because she too talked about archetypes in her book, The Seven Queendoms. So I'm interested to know like what your view of and how you work with the archetypes is a little bit different from hers. And I'm going to start with the same question that I asked her, which is what I know about archetypes is a very kind of Jungian core concepts understanding of archetypes. So
Mhm.
how does your framework of archetypes differ from that kind of Jungian baseline that most people know about, or at least most well-read people know about?
Yes. Well, we do always have to give credit to Carl Jung as being the pioneer in this field, absolutely. And if it wasn't for his work, then we wouldn't have really a kind of a pop culture. It's getting to be that point that really
Right.
even like mainstream, we understand even about these archetypes as these energies or as these they're like templates of our thoughts, of our behaviors, and how they exist in our collective subconscious, right? So, yes, big credit to Carl Jung. And at the same time, since he was a man, he was often looking at things through that masculine lens, right? And nothing wrong with that. But since that time, there's been a number of Jungian analysts, and most notably Dr. Jean Shinoda Bolen in
I'm
her
a huge,
groundbreaking.
I'm a huge fan. I love
Yeah,
Jean Notable, and yes,
exactly. So in her book, which is really groundbreaking at the time, Goddesses in Every Woman, she took an entirely feminine, divine feminine look at
right,
the archetypes. And she was one of my first teachers. I took courses with her, so beyond
yeah,
the book, learning from her. And then even from there, I suppose that she was another springboard for me,
right,
because I felt limited with her system, that it was only the Greek goddesses,
right,
that it seemed still very yeah, like connected and entrenched in that pantheon, and really in the very misogynistic mindset of ancient Greece, unfortunately, right?
Right, right.
So when I started working with archetypes, I had already been doing chakra work and understanding the chakra systems for many decades previously. And then it was like one day I just had this divine upload, if you will, right from Mother, to see how our archetypal expressions are very connected to our chakra energies. So I won't go into all of that now, but that's where I came from, which was like a blending of this spiritual psychology with
Hmm.
this energy system that's in our body, and finding a system that was feminine based.
I as I said, I love Jean Shinoda Bolen. I turned 50 this past year, so I just finished reading the other book, Goddesses in Older Women,
Nice.
which in the forward and introduction, she talks about that age, that turning point, because it's roughly around when women go through menopause. I went through menopause a long time ago because I had a full hysterectomy when I was 31, so I
Mm.
was kind of out of the gate. But so yeah, it was. I mean, like all of her books, everything that she writes just really resonated with me. But actually, I posted this review on Goodreads, but I wish that she would write another book like Crossing the Avalon, because like with this show, right, I'm all about the emotional, spiritual experience. And it just seems like of her books, that was much more personal than some of her
Mm.
other books. So that's my favorite book. But Jean Shinoda Bolen probably doesn't care very much what I think. um, so I took your free archetypal quiz. And it's funny, Flora, because there's a million free quizzes on the internet, right?
Yes.
About your personality or whatever. But when I clicked on the link for yours, when I registered for a Howard's journey, I was like, oh well, it's fun, and then I'll just do it. But then after the first few questions, I was like, she has clearly put a lot of thought into this, and this is not just some random link, on Facebook that yeah, it was really well thought out. So then I put an equal amount of thought into my answers to the questions. So would you like to know what my archetypal quiz results were?
Of course.
I got the priestess.
Um, Not surprised.
You want to tell me a little bit about that beyond what the response email said?
Sure. So anyone who receives the priestess result is someone who is a leader, is stepping into a leadership role. So why I said I'm not surprised is that, even with this podcast, this is you stepping into your spiritual leadership, right? Leadership doesn't look the same for everybody.
Right.
And but that there's yeah, women that receive the priestess as one of their strong expressions are either like me, kind of what more of like that natural leader, or
Right.
like, just like naturally comfortable expressing, um or a lot of women come are like the reluctant leaders, even if they wouldn't
That's
have
what
thought. Is
That's
that you?
hilarious that you say that. I call myself that all the time. I'm like, you're a wounded healer. I'm a reluctant leader.
That's right.
I,
That's right. So so life events, or really the insistency of their soul's calling has really put someone like that more into the spotlight, or has put them into opportunities to share their message in a bigger
right.
way. And so yeah, women that embody that priestess archetype are really spiritual leaders, spiritual teachers, in whatever way that looks like. It doesn't have to be on a big scale, but that's like a natural energy that you hold.
Yeah. Very reluctant.
Very reluctant. And that archetype in my system is connected with the crown chakra.
Right.
And and again, anyone who has some familiarity with the chakra system knows that the crown chakra is that top of the head, and it is
Hmm.
that energy point that again is our connection with that divine energy. So
Yes.
it's very, you know, it's very associated that way.
Yes. So I want to get back to the chakra system,
Yeah.
but I do have a question about because this is a conversation I've had with a handful of people in my life, and I just want to get your thoughts on it, especially since you founded a temple. I'm often dismayed by the overuse of terms that I think are sacred.
Mm.
And priestess is one of those terms. Like, usually when someone tells me they're a priestess, and I don't mean you, Flora, but usually when someone tells me they're a priestess, I'm like, priestess of what? Like, where did you
Mhm.
go? What training did you have to go through? Like, what did you do to earn the title of priestess?
Mm.
So, thoughts, feelings about that? Does it feel like you need to defend yourself?
No, no, no. Yeah, I definitely hear where you're coming from, and yet I take the position of celebrating that
Mm,
term role that is so much in our awareness now, because
hmm.
you better believe that when I was up in, you know, a teenager, and have in my spiritual awakening in the 90s. I mean, to be fair, this was before the internet, but
Right.
the word priestess,
Hmm.
what is that? There was not.
Right.
So
Right.
in a very few short decades, there has really been this explosion, really, in divine
Right.
feminine spirituality, in and of itself, and an explosion in the use of that. So there's that to celebrate, right?
Right.
Yay. And I also hear what you're saying, that it's just like the reclamation of the word witch as well,
Yes.
right? That a lot, it's trendy now, and so it's like,
Right.
and so again, we can celebrate that there's so many, that we don't need to be afraid that people are publicly declaring themselves as, you know,
Right.
witches. Again, think that's great, but are you, you know, what does that really mean to you?
Right.
Are
Right.
you taking that on with a sensitivity and an understanding
Right.
of the history of pain and persecution and the power behind that word? That's
Right.
why I really think that people, the power inherent in these words is still there.
Right.
And so people want to try that on. They're like, yeah, I'm a witch, or yeah, I'm a priestess. And in most cases, I will just be like, power to you, right? Like,
Right.
good.
Right.
And at the same time, yes, what you're saying, have what has been your studies?
Right.
How long have you been on this path?
Right.
Right?
I
What
mean,
training have you received?
when I came up, I mean, the golden rule was you had to study it for a year and a day.
Right.
That's what
At
I was
least.
taught. And you had to like go to the library, you know.
Yes.
I just think, that's why I have this love-hate relationship with technology because in some ways it has enabled us access to information and to one another that we've never had before.
Mhm.
But, then there's the flip side of that, which is misinformation and division.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I posted this rant about this very thing and other terms that I think are sacred when I talked to Dr. Angela Pucco. We talked about the word shaman, which is really an academic construct, not a word that actually arose from that culture.
Right.
Um, and the word, I belong to this little group of Phillianists and Deionists, and we complain about the overuse of the phrase the divine feminine because we're slowly taking that back, but it's still really popular among self-help and yoga and all about finding your inner power. But I don't know about you, Flora, but on my spiritual path, yes, I'm all about self-empowerment, but I am also deeply devoted to and in awe of and have reverence for the goddess, the goddess that is my creator. You know what I mean? I'm not
Mm,
just, and that's why those terms being casually thrown around scare me, right? Like because I'm not just using goddess as my errand girl,
mhm,
right? It's a working relationship.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and that's the other thing that worries me about, which it doesn't really worry me, right? I mean, like she's got this, it's all going to be fine. But just that whole kind of power trip that, especially in younger people that are, again, like the whole like new neo-paganism did us a lot of favors, but it also brought with it a lot of you can do whatever you want and make up your path. It's all about chaos magic and do what feels right to you. And to a certain extent, yeah, I think you need to get in touch with your intuition. But on the other hand, I'm like, you need a teacher, man.
Well,
Otherwise, you can wander into some place that you're not prepared to be. I mean, this is serious stuff,
right.
you know?
Yeah. And I agree with you that that's where it I think it matters the most is
Right.
if you're choosing a teacher, a mentor, a
Mhm.
guide, then that's where you just really want to ask them questions or you want to, read their bio or different things
Right, right,
because that's where I think it really matters the most. If you're
right.
following someone, for their witchy aesthetic on Instagram,
Right,
well, that's fine, right? Get inspired. But I agree with you. And the difference for me personally, and some people, I'm sure plenty of people might disagree with me, but for me personally, I feel um, like calling yourself a witch or just knowing that you are a witch even if you aren't calling yourself a witch out to the world,
right,
it's a personal choice. It really, and for many it's a solitary
right,
practice, not
right,
always. And it's really about, again, this is for me, it's about a connection to the earth and the natural world.
right,
And
right,
that's the witchcraft. And being a witch doesn't necessarily even mean that you have to do anything specifically. It's
right.
really that solitary path. And again, for me personally, if you're going to call yourself a priestess, again, this comes back to that you are a teacher, that you are a leader.
Right,
A priestess serves a community. That is her role and
right,
function as it was historically. The
right,
priestesses
right,
of Mesopotamia, the priestesses of ancient Egypt. It was an important and valued societal role,
right,
right? And it was always in that relationship to community of teaching, of leadership. And so, yeah, if I think sometimes that for some people the lines are blurred because
hmm
and yet I have had people say, well, I consider myself a priestess, but I don't lead a community. And I'm like, well, you can claim that for yourself if
hmm
that's you just know that that's your path. For me,
Right,
I feel that priestess implies some kind of teaching or some kind of leadership.
right, right. Interesting. And like I said, you're a little more forgiving than I am. I mentioned I just turned 50, so I'm getting a little crotchety about these things. Like these kids today,
Yeah, I know.
I'm becoming that person. Um, but I'm working on that. I'm asking for help about that. So, okay, so let's go back to the chakras. I can never remember what they all are. I can never remember
Oh,
what colors go with what. I do remember the crown chakra, that I know, and I know about Kundalini, um, at the base of the spine, the sacral chakra.
yeah.
Um,
Well, why don't we
but
start there? Let's start at the
yeah,
root.
I was gonna say because I haven't
Yeah.
really worked with the chakras per se, unless I've gone to somebody as a teacher or guide who's done some
Mm,
sort of practice or ceremony with me because they were trying to help me with something. But I
hmm
myself have not done that.
hmm Well, yeah. So if we start with the root chakra, and it all of these energy centers are really quite connected to our spines or our skull. So the root is the very base of the spine. It's that tailbone. And then since we have these, these legs that extend down from it's also our legs and our feet because that's what touches the earth, right?
Right.
So the energy around the root chakra is really it's our roots, right? Our
Right,
ability
right.
to feel rooted and grounded in the earth, and energetically the around the root chakra are issues of safety and belonging, right? And yeah, that real security. It's a very it's like even like what they talk about, like those base instincts
Hmm,
and those
hmm.
being at the base of our spine. It's our very primal energy, right? And therefore it relates to really our childhood and our
Hmm.
early years, because when we are dependent and we are not able to make our own decisions as
Hmm.
adults, that's when we're really like our childhood is in that root chakra energy. And so that's why I connected the root chakra with the maiden archetype for women,
Hmm.
because it's that youthfulness. And then even for adults, that can reconnecting. And so there's a bit of that inner child, but also really just you as a youth, teen.
Right,
um, and when we connect into the root and that maiden archetypal energy, it helps us remember that we're all children to Mother Earth.
right.
And I think
So,
that's a really important position to remember.
right. So let me ask you this. In terms of, before you go on to the next one, in terms of the body mind connection, are you somebody that believes that physical problems stem from spiritual blockages?
Oh, well, I mean, they definitely can.
The
Yeah.
reason that I ask you that is because, so okay, on a practical, this is just what happens level, I have a fair amount of moderate to severe arthritis.
Mm.
I'm 50. I did a lot of manual labor in my life. I was a stagehand for many years. I worked in a warehouse. I drove a forklift, like all that shit. Um, but now the majority of my physical pain and the majority of my arthritis and problems associated with that area are in the base of my spine and my sacral joints.
Mm.
Mean anything, or am I just getting old?
It's funny because I thought you were going to say your hands
uh,
because of your manual labor, but
yeah,
no.
no, my hands are
Uh,
fine because I didn't, I mean, I stopped doing manual labor by the
Right.
time I was in my 30s.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a tendency in the new age spirituality to make meaning out of everything. So
Right.
I'm a little bit more of a realist, Kelly, and I would just say, yeah, it's age
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
it's arthritis. Not everything has to be because of that kind of thing. But again,
Good.
some
I'm
people
happy to
make
hear, I'm
things.
happy to hear you say that.
Okay. Like, I laugh because, like, do you ever notice that some spiritual people don't get regular sick? Like they get the ascension flu or they get, it's like, no, when I get a cold, it's because my kid brought it home from school. This isn't because I've hit an upper limit.
Yeah, I mean, on a certain level, I mean, I do think there's something to people that are chronically ill
Yeah. If
or
something's
get or
chronic,
get
you want to
major
you want to
or
look
get
at that.
major
Yeah.
diseases like cancer.
Yeah.
there could be a link to some spiritual sickness. I get that.
Yeah.
And but I don't know. I mean, who really knows,
Well,
right?
yeah,
Who really knows?
and at the same time, does it help a cancer patient to think like, oh, you have breast cancer because you didn't love yourself enough,
Yeah.
or like, or
Right.
you've been disconnected from your femininity, and now that's why like, does
Right,
it help
right.
a
Yeah,
cancer patient,
not helpful, not
or does
helpful.
it not?
Right. I do I'm a certified past life regression hypnotist. And when I
Mm,
went through training for that, uh there is a belief in that community that sometimes physical illnesses are the result of something
yeah.
in a past life. And I haven't come across that in the clients that I've worked with, uh, but I have come across phobias, unexplained phobias due to
Mm-hmm.
something in a past life, which is also really common.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really neither here nor there. I'm just flaunting my spiritual credentials. Um,
Well, I like I said, I think it's good to look at it, and
yeah,
if it helps someone, then it's helpful. But
yeah,
there's also our minds are so powerful that we can make something true by believing in it enough, right? And so then
yes,
is it,
yes.
yeah, is it helpful or not? It's funny that you bring up past life stuff because I was starting to kind of get caught up in something that I was
Mhm.
in terms of a pattern with my son and I, and this it was starting to like I was starting to kind of make it mean a lot
Mhm.
of different things, and it was not helping me because it was actually really upsetting me. And I
Mhm.
came to a point of clarity one day, and it was like my higher self spoke to me that just said, even if that's true, it's not that's not the case in this lifetime.
Right,
And that was all I heard to just like be like, right. And I said, in
right,
this life, he's my son and I'm his mother. And that's all I need to focus on.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, I have seen people get kind of go down a rabbit hole with stuff like that because they want to explain away every bad thing or everything that they find undesirable or unfavorable or
Yeah,
I don't think it works that way.
right.
I
Yeah.
mean, but what do I know? That's my constant refrain is, well, this is what I think, but really, what the fuck do I
What do
know?
I
I mean,
know? Yeah.
really.
Yeah,
I
because
know my own experiences with these things, but my experience might not be your experience.
that's
I don't know.
that's
I
right.
don't know.
Especially because we are um it's the great mystery, and it's meant to be the great mystery. That's the other thing.
Yes.
Our
Yes.
in previous centuries, we were we seem to be much more comfortable with having things like be in the great mystery, for better or worse.
I used to have a
And
bump. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, well, and it's starting definitely, in the 20th century, probably even before, and now here we are in the 21st century. Yeah, like we're super analytical, and we want to know, and we're
Right.
like, cracking open the gene code, and at the
Right.
atomic level, and we're going shooting rockets out into space to take photos of this. It's like we want to know. We have this insatiable to know, no,
Right.
no, and it's like we've forgotten the I think the magic and the beauty of letting things be in the
Right.
mystery.
I used to have a bumper sticker on my car and it had it's just a black and white sketch of the galaxy and it said inspired by the mystery.
Mm.
And I have a theory that our, insatiable wanting to know that we've got going on in our current culture, especially here in the United States, I believe that what that is really driven by is our longing for her
Oh yeah.
and our desire to return to being a more spiritually centered people
Mm-hmm.
because we once were.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then, agriculture and patriarchy and innovation and blah, blah, blah. And here we are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's that. It's the constant searching of why do I have or do this, that, and the other thing and still feel empty inside,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
think that's what drives that wanting to know.
The
So,
disconnection,
right.
from the earth, from our home,
Yep.
which then causes us to feel disconnected to ourselves and
Right.
to each other. And just to circle back to that maiden archetype and that root chakra,
Right.
that's why, like I was saying, it's really important for us to remember that we're children of the earth,
Right.
because right now we're not acting like children of the earth,
No, no, we
right?
are
We're
not.
acting like we're in charge, and that we're in charge actually is coming from that mistrust that we're not taken care of by mother.
Yes. Yes. I
Yeah,
uh I have a book on my bookshelf called Pagan Ethics. And in the preface, it says something like, you know, the moment man was divorced from the land, we've been on this collision course ever since.
yeah,
And it was the moment that we forgot that we belong to the land, not the other way around.
exactly. Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Um, so the mother archetype, to just
mhm.
move that, since we're talking about, mother.
Is that the next chakra?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and and so that, and they work very, very closely in a lot of women,
Right, right,
more so in previous times. Potentially, we have more freedom. More and more women are choosing not to become biological mothers
right,
in this day and age. But that mother archetype is one of the strongest archetypal energies in women,
right,
and it's very much the sacral chakra, right? It's where our reproductive organs
right,
are, right? So it's our wombs, it's our hips. And you know and I and of course, you mentioned earlier that you'd had a hysterectomy.
mhm,
You can still very much connect to the creative energy
right,
of this sacral chakra without a uterus,
right, right.
but that's
And
so it's not just.
anyone that knows me at all, I'm a very creative person,
Yeah,
so
I'm
I got
I'm
that.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure. That's where I feel the mother, because the mother's energy, of course, well, there's two hallmarks of the mother, right? Giving
Mhm.
birth to life, like carrying and giving birth to life. But that it doesn't end there, right? Any mother will tell
Right,
you
right,
that. After the baby is born, that's when the real work begins.
right, right,
It's the nurturing of life. It's the taking care, it's the fostering. And if it's not a child, this can be expressed in women through their pets, animals, even like
right,
gardens. You already mentioned agriculture, and of course even projects or ideas.
right. Those are our children, our books, our
Yeah.
poetry, our,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. So someone with the mother energy, mother archetypal energy, isn't just the idea person or the initiator, but the mother energy, like I said, is the one that will nurture the community, will
right,
nurture the idea
right,
from conception to, being out in the world and giving it life,
right,
and is very is often just like that natural uh care is. It's like she's intuitively aware of other people's needs at all
right.
times.
Our friend Dr. Ionescu got the mother archetype.
Ah, beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's and that's one that we know this, because even if we aren't mothers in this lifetime, we've all come from a mother.
Right, right. And I mean, and people will tell me that they feel safe with me or that they feel nurtured or supported or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any children,
Mm-hmm.
so Yeah, you can be childless but still be mothering, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I want to say something here that I don't know that I've, made clear, just that
Hmm.
what's the difference between an archetype and a goddess? And what do we
Right,
talk about when we're talking about goddess archetypes or divine feminine archetypes? So
right.
they're connected, but they're two different things,
Okay.
right? So an archetype is really like it's the distillation, it's the synthesis of shared traits, right? Shared behaviors, but it's like it's more of like a blueprint, and an archetype will transcend culture, right? Will
Hmm.
transcend any particular religion in a particular place. Archetypes transcend time in terms of history, historical
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
And so then when you look at these goddesses, or gods, any deities from different cultures and different myths, we as humans have historically, we project human traits onto
Right,
the divine. This is
right,
just something that we do ignorantly, thinking that
right.
thinking that that the divine would be, have similar traits to our humanity. So if you look at, say, a goddess like Artemis,
Hmm.
bringing up, our Artemis expert friend.
Got all
um
these nods to Carla. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. She's as dynamic as say a human would be,
Hmm.
and so she's going to express, I mean, she's known as a maiden
Hmm.
goddess because, she never married and have kids. So yes, we can see Artemis in the maiden, but she's always also very much the warrior,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So this is why when we look at goddesses or when we look at ourselves, we don't just express one archetypal energy,
Right.
right? Like we're too dynamic for that. So I just wanted to explain that we can understand these archetypes as these really like almost like just like pure distillations of a certain energy, like
Hmm.
the mother is a great one, but then
Right.
there's so many goddesses that embody that energy,
Right.
of course, right? So that, we, depending on different cultures, you could like look at the Celtic mother goddesses or the Scandinavian goddesses that are like
Right.
mothers, or the
Or
anything.
or any goddess that is in triplicate form as the Mother Maiden and Crone.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So it's just that's a question I get asked a lot. It's just like, oh, understanding that the archetypes allow us a wonderful opportunity to see our own our own personality traits,
Right.
and to understand the motives behind some of our behaviors. It's like,
Right.
oh, right, that's why I'm like that. And it's a archetypal psychology is it's just a beautiful and powerful way to understand ourselves at a real soul level.
Right. I
And
have you ever read Caroline Myss?
yes, yes,
So our Sacred Contract, she draws on a lot of archetypal work. And
totally.
that
And
that was one of the first books like on this path that I'm on now so wholeheartedly. And it
yeah.
blew me away. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. And doesn't that's a great book and a great reference, that and doesn't her system in that book, isn't it 12?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's something else for people to be aware of. You mentioned Carl Jung, his original archetypal system was 12,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And then like the book I mentioned, Goddesses in Every Woman, she went to 7 for the
Right.
feminine. My system that I intuitively downloaded again was 7 because of the chakras. And I'm also like a priestess initiate in the 13 moon tradition, where there's 13 feminine
Okay.
archetypes.
Okay.
So there's lots of different systems out there, and you could even find information online about like branding archetypes for your business. And you can kind
Right,
of start
right,
to think about archetypes in a lot of different applications, and
right,
there's lots of different systems that will have different numbers.
right.
Yeah.
So what's the next chakra?
Oh, yes. Okay, moving on up. So from maiden in the root, mother in the sacral, we go to the solar plexus chakra and the archetype of the wild woman or that warrior energy. And this is if you know about the solar plexus, this is our place of personal power and
Mhm.
choice. It's definitely like a more extroverted energy, and that's why I felt the wild woman there. The wild woman being our just like our untamed expression of
Right, right.
femininity,
Mhm.
and in the world, like she's a trailblazer, and she's just like,
Right.
bold, she's courageous, she's she doesn't have to be so wild that she's like matted hair and out in the woods, barefoot. You can be
Right,
wild
right,
woman in the boardroom kind of thing, rocking
right,
that
right.
presentation, and something like that. But wild women are, yeah, they're very confident, and they've got that, I don't know. I was just going to say je ne sais quoi. They've got that energy that's like, you
Right.
know, yeah. And that's where I feel Artemis, and I feel other goddesses like Pele, right? The volcano, a
Hmm,
goddess
hmm.
of Polynesian. Like it's just the wild feminine. So and so, spoiler alert, this one is one of the most repressed in women.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially since I mean we're so puritanical here, right? I mean we
Yeah,
are
yeah,
about sex, about women, about sexual women, about
yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Anyone who's spent time with young girls before they've been tamed
Right, right.
knows that irrepressible wild woman, right? That wild
Yeah, yeah,
feminine. Yeah.
yeah.
And
I
it's
think that's
beautiful.
I think that's why nature goddesses appeal to me,
Mm.
right? Because because they do have the knotted hair and leaves and flowers in their hair, running naked through the woods, and
Yes. So since it is so repressed, um, I want to make it clear that it's like you can let your wild woman out bit by bit.
yeah,
You don't need to suddenly be like, I'm letting her out of the cage and throwing away the key. That might just be too scary for you, or just
right,
might
right,
not. It might just not be your natural expression too. It doesn't have to always be like, oh, you were told to like sit up, be quiet, and keep your legs shut,
right,
necessarily.
right,
But I mean, you probably were, like we all were.
right, right.
But you can put music on while you're cooking, and remember
Mhm.
and remember like, hey, I don't have to, this chore can suddenly be much more pleasurable when I'm
Right,
listening to music.
right.
And hey, I'm dancing in the kitchen, and then hey, the
Yeah.
kids are like, hey, what's going on with mom? And hey, this is fun. And just like a little bit,
Right.
you can take your shoes off and walk bare feet somewhere, and remember, like, oh, remember what that feels like. You can you can just do something. You can go somewhere with your lover, especially I'm talking to the moms here. Go somewhere with your lover that you can fully vocally express your orgasm,
Hmm.
right? Right, that let her out that way. Find some ways to just like let her out to play a little bit.
Right, right. So Flora, I've got to ask, if have you taken your own quiz?
Oh, yes.
And
My top two are creatrix and priestess.
okay.
So I'm getting to the creatrix because
Got
she's
it. Got it.
she's
Okay.
throat.
I was just
Um,
curious.
yeah, yeah. I'm definitely wild woman as well.
Right. I
But
mean, we're
I
all a little bit of all of them, right?
exactly. That's important for everyone to realize too. And these aren't just, boxes to suddenly be like, oh, I'm stuck in a box. No, no, no. It's
Right.
good. It's good to know that we can express all of these energies. And what's exciting too in this day and age, quite literally, we're living longer lives.
Ugh,
So we're having
I don't
more
want to.
years. We're having more years to live through different archetypes.
I'm telling you, I am so not interested in that. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to. I just don't want to.
Well, I honor that for you. But when we think about it, that it used to be like we would be married and having kids by 16, 18. And
Right,
if
right,
if we survive the childbearing years, then we might make it to 30 or 35. I'm
right,
talking, you know, that we didn't have a lot of time, and we certainly didn't have a lot of freedom to
right.
express and explore everything that we can nowadays. So if we're moving on up, obviously after this the solar plexus, we come to the heart, and the heart is connected to the healer
Mm,
archetype. And this is one that I find a lot of women feel comfortable here.
right.
No surprise.
Well, yeah,
Women, heart-centered women, right? And so the healer, the real gift of the healer is their compassion for other people. And when you're around someone who really embodies this energy, you feel a warmth, and it's like you feel your whole body relax in their presence. And it can be there's can be a similar energy to the mother a little bit, right? Where you're kind of like, oh, there, but the healer is like, yeah, they're very nourishing. They're usually very calm. They usually speak a little slower. Like I'm consciously invoking the energy of the healer even as I'm speaking with you now.
right. So let me ask you this. Is whatever we resonate with the most, is the archetype that we resonate with the most, is that something that is ingrained in us, or is that something that is changeable? And the reason I ask you this question is because what you just described is who I believe I am at my core. And I believe that who I am at my core is how my goddess sees me. And I
Mm,
believe that at my core, I am kind, loving, and generous.
mm,
But I am a human, and like all humans, I have good and less admirable traits. I
mm,
don't want to say bad because none of it's bad,
mm-hmm.
but like I strive toward that. And
Yeah.
I could still, like, just as an example. So I'm in a support group, and every time I go to a meeting of this particular support group, before I walk in the door, I have been saying this prayer. If I open my mouth, please help me to speak from a place of love rather than from a place of authority,
Mm,
because I'm big on being an authority
mm,
and coming from I mean, I have a superiority complex. I can own that. I'm much better than I used to be because because I work on that, or I prefer to think of it as I allow myself to be worked on, right?
mm-hmm.
To be molded into this vision of me that I know I am at my core. So, so back to the original question, which is if somebody heavily resonates, uh, if somebody like, let's just talk about Carla some more. So somebody like Carla heavily resonates with the mother archetype, but she really wants to be a creatrix instead. Could she do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because these are energies, like we were just saying, that are available. They're all available to us.
Hmm.
Now, there's patterns, right? And we do fall into what's comfortable for us.
Right.
And it's a combination, like a lot of things, of that nurture versus nature,
Right.
right? So if we're lucky, and I consider myself lucky, so I'll use myself an example, that my parents, as hippies, as feminists, as spiritual people, not religious people, nurtured me to be in most harmony with my nature, right? I
Right.
know that I was one of the lucky ones. So the things that I naturally gravitated to, well, I was also nurtured. Someone who was nurtured and raised to be in opposition to their nature, right, is going to have a
Mm.
little bit more of a time of coming back to, oh, right, I only so strongly associated with the mother because that was what I was told I could be, that I had to be.
Right.
For
Right.
example, like that was my role in life, was to find a husband, have kids, right?
Right.
And for so many women, that is that. But it's true. What's really coming out now, and of course, a lot of women find this as their kids get older, who have, a lot of them have loved motherhood. Let's, yay for the moms of the world. But as their kids are getting older and they're needed less as a mother, then they're finding, like, who am I? And as
Right.
so many women go on a journey of self-discovery at that time, or that, not even quite at the empty nest, maybe before, but maybe
Right.
until the empty nest, because then they're like, who am I? What do I want to do? And then they find,
Right.
oh, I want to write, I want to paint, or I want to volunteer, or I want to travel. So
Hmm. Hmm.
so yeah, so there is a certain point where we can consciously choose. I want to bring in more of that energy because that's what I'm wanting to do with my life. And as you and I well know, if what we're desiring to manifest is not in alignment with our truth or higher self,
Right.
no, we just will end up kind of spinning our wheels. So we always got to check in
Right.
with
Right.
our higher self to be like, is this just an ego desire, or is this actually what I want?
Right. Right. I mean, I think for me, I think for me, what I talked about, I mean, that is a genuine desire
Of course, yeah. Any
because
any
there,
any
because
desire to speak from love, it sounds pretty genuine to me.
yeah, because I have been told multiple times over the years from different people that once we became friendly and once they got to know me later on in the relationship, they will tell me, when I first met you, I found you very intimidated. I was very intimidated by you. I was afraid to talk to you, or I found you to be unapproachable in some way, or you know
Mm,
what I mean?
mm,
And that's not who I want to be. And
mm,
it's not who I think I actually am. You know
mm,
what I mean?
mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
like I want to be the person in the room that feels that
Warm.
people feel what you were talking about. They feel like I have people like that in my life, right? Like my friend Jelana, she's probably one of the most sedate people I know. And if I'm wrapped around the axle about anything, uh, my first stop is always at my altar because that usually gives me more solace and relief than anything else. But like if I'm just in the middle of something and I really need to talk to a goddess with skin on, I will go to her because her energy is so,
Mm,
just calm down. It's gonna
mhm.
be all right. And she emanates that, you know what I mean? And because of that, she's the person in a crowded room that everybody wants to be near,
Right.
and I get that.
Mhm.
Um, I don't, but see, here's the conundrum for me. I want to be that, but then I'm also such an introvert that I'm also like I want to be the person that everybody wants to be around, but then after 15 minutes of that, I'm gonna want everybody to go away.
Yeah, you're like, bye, enough. I get that. I get that.
So maybe that's why I'm stuck in my reluctant leader role.
Right. Right. Yeah. So the healer is also someone that follows that, that beautiful wisdom of, we have two ears and one
Mhm.
mouth, and we're meant
Right,
to listen twice as much as we speak.
right, right,
Whereas when we get to the creatrix, which is the next chakra of the throat, it's like the opposite. Create,
right. right,
create
right,
creatrixes often are the messengers, where the communicators, and often that really does have to do with literally the voice connected to the
right,
throat
right,
chakra, but not always. Of course, we can create in many different ways.
right,
um so once we get to the creatrix and the throat chakra, yeah, it's all about manifesting our creations in the world,
right,
right? Not just having ideas about them, but actually, making them a reality. And and since I already outed myself, this is one of my strongest archetypes. And it's no coincidence that I've been a singer since as long as I've been speaking, like, and
right, right,
that real vocal ability. um and it's the creatrix is really all about creative expression. So it's the muse. That energy of the Greek myth. The muse is the
right,
creatrix is always in a courtship relationship with some muse. And
right,
the shadow side of the creatrix archetype is that having so many ideas, multi-passionate,
right,
lacking the focus, and lacking the follow through to see something get completed. Sometimes that can be
right,
the downfall of this energy. That's where it needs to be paired with that mother energy, right? Throat
right,
and
right,
sacral, to be like, no, once I birth this, I'm going to continue to
right,
nurture
right,
it. Yeah.
right. Um, so I've heard you sing, Flora, and of course it's beautiful, and I would recommend you to anyone. Um, I've got to be in a certain mood, though. You know what I mean? I listen to a lot of different kinds of music,
Yeah.
and so I have to ask because I don't know what you listen to. What kind of music do you listen to? Do you listen to other music like yours, or are you like me that you listen to everything?
Oh, yeah, like in general.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, nowadays I listen to more sacred music, devotional,
Right,
witchy or goddess music than ever before.
right,
Again, one of the beauties of the internet, right? Like, I just
right, right,
had no idea that there was so much music out there like that.
right.
But I historically, I suppose I used to be a jazz singer.
Oh,
So I was a professional jazz singer for a decade, and
I think I knew that about you.
I love the old standards, but again,
Right.
vocal jazz. So like Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan,
Yeah, yeah,
some of the newer singers, for
yeah.
sure as well. But that's where I came from. And then, I love pop too. Some of my favorite pop singers these days are Sia. She's got an incredible voice. I love
Okay.
Sia. And yeah, so I guess vocal music is my favorite
Right.
music. And for anything from pop to jazz to soul. Yeah, I'm not so no, I don't listen to everything, but I've got my
It's
favorite
it's
artists.
eclectic, right?
Yeah.
I was just curious. So because I swear that I was a musician in a former life because I cannot carry a tune or play an instrument, but I fucking love music.
Nice.
I mean, like with my soul, you know?
Hmm.
So as a result of that, I have a lot of musician friends and like I have a friend who's a local singer and she lives here in town. And whenever I hear her sing, I have come to have this idea about these female singers that the goddess is speaking through them. These women that have these women like yourself who have these powerful voices that to someone like me who cannot sing, it seems like a supernatural ability.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Let
Um,
me so I want to stop you right there.
uh-huh.
Even though, I mean, yeah, my ego would love people to think I have a supernatural ability, but it's just years and years and years of singing.
Yes, but one of the gifts of being a musician or a singer is that you have the ability to move other people,
Mm,
right? And
yeah.
so I'm a huge Florence and the Machine fan.
Oh yeah.
And interesting because I was late to that party, right? I had heard about her or whatever, but she was still kind of underground. And then a couple years ago, I had this like hugely profound spiritual shift in my life. I was in a very dark place. I had a lot of shadow work to do. And she came up in some random shuffle. I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened, but it was a very profound moment when I was listening to something that she was singing. So then I got really into them.
Yeah.
And I have come to the conclusion that Florence Welch, not only does the goddess speak through her, I don't think she's human. I mean, if you really listen to her, plus she's a fucking brilliant lyricist.
Oh yeah.
As a poet, right? As a poet and a writer, I'm all about the lyrics. I mean, I want a good beat too, but let's face it, not only can I not sing, I can't really dance either. So I'm a lyricist, right? I mean, and she's I I don't know. I look at her and I hear her and I just think you cannot be real. Like can't you just can't be.
No,
I,
and
I
this is what we often do with these these artists and these stars that get really big. They do start to take on supernatural or inhuman
right?
qualities.
Right?
David Bowie, being
Yes.
one that, it was, and of course he played on it, right? Like he's like, oh yeah, I'm not fully from here,
Right.
everything. Um,
But
being an
at the same time, I don't know if you've ever seen her like clips of concerts or interviews or whatever, because at the
oh
same
yeah,
time, she's very real
oh yeah.
and very
And
down to earth and really loves her fans. And I don't know, she has a kind of a humble genuineness about her. And I think the greatest thing about her is that she doesn't like being that famous. After
right.
every tour, she goes to her manager and says, okay, can I get not any more famous than this? And her
Right.
manager's
Like,
like, it doesn't work that way.
yeah, I know. I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. So what I was going to say is, as when with these artists, and we're so amazed, what I see is just someone that has been, like, their needs are taken care of so that they can just be a
Yes.
full-time creative channel.
Yes.
And that's why
Yes.
their work, not with all artists, as we know, but with some of these artists, they're able to take their art, whatever it is, music or dance
Right.
or film or visual art, right? They're able to take their art into these incredibly deep places, rich, because they're in that full time relationship with the muse.
Right.
So then, if we're going to speak about the next one, from the throat, we go to the third eye, the brow point chakra. And this one is, of course, very connected to our intuition, our visionary ability. And so that's why I associate this chakra with the crone, or the wise
Mhm.
woman, the sage, right? The oracle, the classic, or oracle at Delphi, again coming back to those priestesses of ancient
Right.
times. When we were talking about the important role and function they played in society,
Right.
political decisions were not made without consulting the oracle first.
Right.
Wouldn't that be amazing
Right.
nowadays, right?
I'd be interested to know if for many, many years, whoever the current president was had a personal astrologer. Wonder if that's still true.
Oh,
Not a
yeah,
priestess, but certainly an
right, an
oracle of
astrologer.
sorts, right?
Well, it's at least something, yeah, for sure.
Right, right.
So, of course, even when I say the word crone, that's another word that we're reclaiming in terms of what it really means for
Right,
women.
right.
Because I remember learning that the actual translation through something like in Gaelic, the word for crone, is the word for hag, and it's really that
Right.
older woman who in a society that really only values women for either being young and sexually appealing and like you're going to marry a young hot something, or the other role is then bearing children and raising your family. A crone, an older woman who's past, like she's useless to that society
Right.
that only values. So we don't have the respect for our elders
Right.
in the same way. And
And so
so,
and so many cultures once did. They
yes,
were revered.
yes, because they were the holders of knowledge, of stories,
Right.
and how many times have we said this in the conversation before the internet, even, right?
Right.
Like you would call even that, but we're only talking decades now, not like
Right. Right.
millennia, but you call your mom for that recipe, or you might call
Right.
your grandma for that
Right.
recipe. And so if anyone listening, that maybe strikes a chord, maybe
Right.
think about that. The next time that you think about Googling something, is this something that you could maybe call your mom about or your grandma? If you still have a living grandmother, you
Yeah.
might want to try to see if you can bridge something there.
Right.
And what's that? So for younger women too, this is similar to like even how older women can still connect with their inner maiden, younger women can definitely still connect with their inner wise woman. And
Right.
it's often through intuitive practices, right? So any practices
Right.
that will strengthen your intuitive ability and really connect you in that way, because that wisdom that comes from lived experience as well as anything learned through more academic ways is so valuable. And it's a tragic oversight that disregards the wisdom of older women and older men, just really our elders in general.
Right.
And so there's a lot there with that archetype, but also even how women's intuition has been dismissed, for so long, so
Right.
much so that we dismiss it ourselves. Yeah, yeah. So that's a bit about the third eye and the crone, the wise woman. What's your strongest intuitive channel, Kelly?
I don't know the answer to that.
Mm.
How would I know?
Well, it was more just like, are you visual? Do you, clairvoyant in that way, or do you hear,
Um,
or do you feel?
it's definitely a feeling.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely an intuitive feeler.
yeah.
I mean, I do. It's interesting because I will occasionally see signs, but
Hmm.
I'm such an unobservant person that I maybe I'm getting signs all the time, but I'm missing them.
Right. Don't worry, the universe will keep on sending them to you.
That's right. That's right. And and of course, like anyone else, the more open I am to that, the more I receive, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's a, a conversely proportional relationship, I think.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. I have thoughts that come into my head that I just know, like in my bones, I know that it did not come from me.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast was a divinely inspired idea. It didn't come
Mm-hmm.
from me, wasn't something I'd thought about doing for a long time. It came, I did it. That
Yeah,
was it. I
nice.
mean, it was that quick. I didn't
Yeah,
really think about it. I mean, I had a rough idea of what I wanted it to be about, but like I said, that whole first season, it just took on a life of its own, and
yeah,
it became what it is now. And it brings me so much joy, and I hope that it brings joy into the lives of others. I hope. I hope. One can hope.
Yes,
But if not, it brings me joy. That's good enough because then I've got more to share with others, you know.
more to share. Yeah, beautiful. Well, and this is, yeah, that's a great example of just like receiving an intuitive hit and running with it, right? It's like you
Right.
received a divine assignment.
Right.
Yeah.
And my whole spiritual growth process over the last, I don't know, I'd say 5 or 6 years has been really I really started to focus on hearing my own intuition. And then once I was able to really clearly hear it and feel it, the rest of the time was spent learning how to trust it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was harder,
Yes.
right? Harder.
Yeah.
But I'm there now, and it was it was worth the process that it took to learn how to do that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Mm-hmm.
So, um, we're done. Yeah, we went through all the chakras.
We are, yeah, because we
Went,
started
we
with the
went through.
crown,
Right,
right?
right.
So yeah,
Well,
so
we started
just
with the sacral.
yeah, well, no,
Oh
because we
no, we
started
talked
talking
about
about
the
the
crown. You're right.
priestess.
You're right.
Yeah. So yeah, so just to recap, I guess in the root is the maiden, in the sacral is mother, solar plexus, wild woman, heart is healer, throat is the creatrix, third eye is the crone or wise woman, and then in the crown chakra we have the priestess. So I know that Kelly's going to be sharing the link to my free quiz, because yeah, you can take the quiz and see what comes up for you as your top your strongest expression
Mm,
is one of those archetypes, and you learn about the light qualities and the shadow qualities.
right.
There's tips on how to activate that chakra center that's associated, and you're also given a goddess portal, like a goddess that you can explore that if that's something that excites you. So you receive a lot when you take that quiz. And thank you for the
Yeah.
opportunity to speak on this, and thank you for yeah, this opportunity to share.
So Flora, at the end of every episode, I ask all the guests the same 3 questions.
Okay, great.
This is the really fun part, although I've had fun with you for the last hour. Um, so the first question is, what is the first question? The first question is, my goodness, I forgot.
We'll hold space.
Hold, please. Can't believe I forgot. It's been a few weeks since I've done one of these, so you'd think that this was something I would know by heart by now.
All good.
I know the second and third one. Oh, jeez. Duh. Okay. Tell me a fun fact about yourself that people who know you would be surprised to learn.
Oh yes, one of those kind of secret ones.
Hmm.
Well, not a lot of people know that for 5 years I was the music director for a burlesque troupe. So I was a
Ooh.
burlesque dancer, and we did a lot of shows. And what something I'm really proud about is that we did a lot of live music in our shows, and that's why I was the music director. So I got
Nice.
to sing and take off my clothes theatrically and comically, and yeah, I had a lot of fun in those burlesque days.
Nice. You're right. I'm surprised to learn that about you. Okay. Second question. What is your current favorite television series or movie?
Oh my goodness. Okay, now this is embarrassing, but my wife and I are have been watching Murdoch Mysteries for so long. It's this Canadian murder mystery show,
I've heard
and
of it.
We had no idea when we first started that we were going to like it so much, and there's like 15 or 16 seasons, so
Yeah, yeah.
it just seems to go on. So yeah, it's kind of a funny one, but Murdoch Mysteries.
Okay. No hesitation. Murdoch Mysteries it is. Okay. And finally, the last question is if they made a movie of your life, what would the theme song and the soundtrack of the movie of your life be?
Okay, I thought you were going to ask who would play me in the movie of my life. So
No, no,
no, no, the soundtrack and
just the theme song.
the theme song. Oh my
Mm,
gosh. It would, well, it would, sheesh, yeah, it would have to be something that was you know, probably like a power ballad. Yeah, sung by Sia. Let's put my favorite singer in there
okay.
about, all that I've overcome and, done. And it would be like this rich layered strings and drums and yeah, power. I'm just gonna say it would be a power ballad. I don't know
Mm,
why.
but you can't think of a specific power ballad? Come on, Flora.
Oh,
Everyone else who's been on this show has
like
given
an
me something
actual
specific,
song.
and you can't
Okay.
take Glory Gaynor, I Will Survive. Somebody used that one already.
Right, right, right. Okay, then. Oh, because a lot of my healing has been around self-love.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm going to say Beautiful by Christina Aguilera.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll allow it. That's a
All
good
right.
one.
All right.
I've had a couple of people give me answers that I've had to go, because they were songs by artists that I'd never heard of and songs that I didn't know. Um, but that's always a fun question. But I think the winner to date is Kendall, my other occasional co-host, in addition to Carla, because Kendall's theme song is the Imperial Death March
That's
for
funny.
for reasons that she gets into in a couple different episodes. So,
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Nice.
all
Yeah, I
right,
mean,
Flora.
either that or some, like we all come from the goddess.
Right, right. Well, I was wondering if it was going to be one of your songs.
Right. Not yet. I suppose I have not yet written the soundtrack to the movie of my life.
But you will. So
One day.
just out of curiosity, since you were anticipating the who would play you in the movie, who would play in the movie?
Oh yeah, well, I was kind of like racking my brain.
Ah,
Natalie Portman.
okay, okay. I can see that.
Yeah.
People always tell me if I remind someone of an actress, they always tell me that if they ever make a movie about my life, I should be played by Janine Garofalo.
Sure.
I don't
Yeah.
really see it, but okay.
I think it's the attitude. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Can't
Well,
change
thank
your
you so much for
stripes, right?
yes, yes, exactly. And I was
Even
just
if
gonna say
I,
thank you
even if
so
I'm
much.
loving and generous and kind, I'm still gonna be me.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Even with your red hair, we can let you into the sarcastic brunettes club.
That's right. That's right. All right, Flora. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me this afternoon.
You're
It's going to be
so
a
welcome.
wonderful episode. I can't wait. I'll let you know when it's ready.
Thank you
And
for having me.
happy Friday and have a fabulous weekend.
Yeah, you too.
May
Thanks.
the peace of the goddess be with you.
Mm, forever and always.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks for watching or listening. If you want more of The Girlfriend God, you can find The Girlfriend God and The Girlfriend God podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. The Girlfriend.